A Western-style building that served as a diplomatic venue over 100 years ago is opening its doors to the public this month. Now, back in June, diplomats and social media influencers were invited for a preview of the Dondeokjeon Hall in Deoksugung Palace in central Seoul. So what is the Dondeokjeon Hall? Who are the ambassadors appointed to promote awareness about it? And how are they planning to reach out to the public here and beyond? Welcome to Issues and Insiders. Today, I have a panel of foreign ambassadors appointed to promote awareness of Dondeokjeon Hall, located in Deoksugung Palace in central Seoul. I have Adriana DUELLO here in the studio. Adriana, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Hi, it's my pleasure.
I also have Saba SZOKE with us. Saba, welcome to the studio.
Thank you so much. It's lovely to meet you.
Right. Adriana, let's begin with some details about the Dondeokjeon Hall in Deoksugung Palace, which I believe is officially poised to open on the 25th of this particular month.
Yes, exactly. Dondeokjeon Hall is a Western-style building inside the Deoksugung Palace. It was built around 1993, and the usage of it was kind of a guest house for foreigners in a certain level, you know. And it's a diplomatic space for the Korean Empire at that time. So this palace, as you can see, is like Western style, so it's really different, you know, from the palace atmosphere, and kind of show for me the urge of Korean Empire at that time to become more global, to reach foreigners, to reach the world, you know. And that's what they were trying to do, I think. The space also was used as a banquet for the king and different events. And after 20 years from its opening, it was destroyed during the Japanese colonial era. So now they are rebuilding it, and they are doing an amazing work with the research, because we don't really have many proof of how it used to look, especially in the inside. So they are doing a research of what was the trend at the time, how it should have looked, what they were researching for, and they are rebuilding in that sense. And it's a extremely hard, I think, but it's an amazing job that they're doing.
Right, it's also a very ambitious endeavor right there. Shaba, I believe you were among the influencers who joined diplomats to a preview of Dondeokjeon Hall back in June. What were your thoughts upon seeing this particular hall?
Exactly. So I have to say I felt very, very honored to have visited it among the first people. It's a very historically important building, so I felt as if I was time traveling, because it wasn't there for around 100 years, right? So nobody in that timeline has even seen maybe pictures of it or has ever imagined what it would look like. But then they found this one picture and they rebuilt this whole place based on that one picture, as far as I remember well. So it felt very new, very refreshing, and very important. And I was impressed. I was truly impressed, and I felt this is a hall that everybody should know of.
Right, I can't wait to visit myself once it officially opens. And what about you, Adriana? What impressed you the most about Dondeokjeon Hall, which served as a diplomatic venue then during the Korean Empire?
Actually, the first thing that everyone can notice is that it's a really colorful building. There is a lot of green, and that green kind of reminds the Art Nouveau. That was the style at the time in France, was a trend. So they rebuilt it also, I think having that reference. But at the same time, it's a green that it's used a lot also in the decoration in traditional Korean palace, you know. So I think that was the thing that kind of impressed me. It's like they didn't choose anything by case. Every single detail is thought to kind of be fusion, you know, of cultures, a place where a foreigner can come and feel comfortable, but at the same time, Korea doesn't lose its identity, because there is an entire part that is traditional also inside the Deoksugung Palace. So that was quite impressive, and yeah, I really liked that detail.
Adriana, among the ambassadors chosen to promote awareness of Dondeokjeon Hall, I understand, are countries that established ties with the Korean Empire 100 years ago. Now, first, what can you tell us about Korea's past and present ties with your home country, Italy, I believe?
Oh, well, recently I discovered that the first Westerner that discovered the existence of Korea was Marco Polo. And that's amazing, I think. It's kind of like destiny for me to know. And also at the end of 16th century, Italy sent some Christian missionary to Korea as well. So there is some kind of contact between the two countries, but officially that was in 1884, I guess. Yeah, almost 140 years ago. Next year is going to be 140 years. And I feel like the relationship between Italy and Korea is really sincere relationship, not only political. Like during the Korean War as well, Italy sent its aid, medical aid to Korea. Almost 130 people stayed in Korea for a few years. And there keep being exchanges, like a lot of Koreans goes to Italy to learn art, opera, and a lot of Italian gets more and more interested about Korean culture as well. Like we have almost 3 universities where you can study Korean, and it's become more and more popular as well. So yeah, and I think it's really kind of sincere relationship, I can say. And I cannot wait for next year, 140 years. There are going to be many events, so I cannot wait.
Right, neither can I. Likewise, Saba, you are from Hungary, I understand.
Yes.
Could you tell us a bit more about Hungary's ties with South Korea?
Of course. So our first recorded ties go way back to the 19th century. And actually a person named Gáspár Ferene, or like Ferene Gáspár for us, visited from the Austro-Hungarian Empire to Joseon to sign a treaty of friendly trade and navigation. And after that, unfortunately, Korea became a colony of Japan and Russia took over Hungary, so became a communist country. And our ties were almost severed. But after that, at the end of the 20th century, in 1989, we restored our ties. And actually, Hungary was the first previously communist country to have make official ties with South Korea. And then we went back and went on to do more economic developments and economic exchanges. But that was even before we officially restored the ties. That was, if I remember well, in the 1980s, but before '89. Also now we have a lot of economical improvements coming in from Korea. And also Korea has a lot of factories in Hungary now. For example, am I allowed to say brands?
Yes,
so
you are.
we have a lot of Samsung factories in Hungary, and it's becoming more and more popular. And also Korea has now a Korean department in one of our most prestigious universities, I think since 2008, and a lot of students are looking forward to learning Korean. It's becoming more and more popular. People are getting to know Korea way better, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about these developments.
And Shiva, how do you explain the growing interest in Korea among the public there in Hungary?
I would say, I think it's thanks to Hallyu. And also the fact that it's very revered in Hungary how Korea has established its economy after the war, because we still couldn't reach that level of economic growth as Korea, so we look up to the country and saying, wow, how can we do this as well? I think we are looking up to the country. I think we have interest and in the fact that we can learn a lot from Korea's development.
And I'm sure it could be a mutual learning experience, of course, for both Korea and Hungary. Adriana, how does it feel to have been selected as a foreign ambassador to promote understanding of this ancient Korean whole of history and diplomacy? I'm sure it should be a very daunting task.
It's such an honor, and like I arrived to Korea 8 years ago now, and I couldn't imagine that I becoming like an ambassador of Royal Palace. It's like a dream, actually. And I was so proud of it and happy that I share it on my social media. And a lot of people that I also don't know, Italians, contacted me and was like, "Oh, I'm so proud of you. I feel like represented now also in Korean activities, like cultural activities." And I thought, wow, I'm representing my countries, you know. Like
What brought you to Korea 8 years ago?
Oh, actually, I came here just because I wanted to study acting, because we don't have acting and department and university in Italy. So I wanted to study more in a university, so that's why I came to Korea.
I see, I see. Saba, meanwhile, the group of ambassadors come from countries that were either colonized, like South Korea and Hungary, or that did colonize in the past. And that being said, now Hungary, like you mentioned earlier, like Korea, shares a period of colonization. What are the implications of this latest venue as an ambassador for you, keeping that commonality between the two countries in mind?
Actually, I think Dondeokjeon Hall is a very, very good sign, a very good symbol of saying that, hey, I do not let history, I do not let the past destroy our cultural heritage. We do not let it affect our future, and we keep our strength. It doesn't matter what happened in the past, we are going on strong, we have the unity, and at the same time we are very peaceful and opening to the world. As far as I know, it was destroyed during the Japanese colonial era, right? And we have a lot of buildings as well. Those were heavily damaged in those eras of Hungary as well. But we are just like South Korea. We are very patriotic, and we always fought for our freedom. So I think if this was a building in Hungary that was restored to its previous perfect state, I think we would feel very, very united, very strong, and yet at peace. Because this is a new era, and we're hoping that this kind of issues of the past are not going to happen again, and maybe these buildings could symbol this kind of social and cultural improvements.
Yeah.
Hopefully, hopefully. Adriana, as a foreigner currently residing here in South Korea, how accessible do you suppose is access, that is, to information to Korea's history?
Well, if you speak Korean or your mother tongue is English, I think that it's quite easy to get some information. But as in Italy, the mother tongue is not English, and I think for other countries it may be hard to understand, those information. Even sometimes when I go to museums, I see the description of some artwork. There is like this amount of description in Korean, and after just one sentence in English as well. So even in English, sometimes there is a poor translation, and also in other languages, of course. So also our role here as an ambassador for Deoksugung is also being kind of a bridge to also other countries that maybe don't speak English, so we may translate or make some guide, some guide tour or something in Italian, for example. That is, I think, a good chance for Deoksugung, but also for other palaces or for the touristic improvement in Korea.
Right, of course. Saba, is there a specific subject regarding Korea's history or culture that the people in Hungary are most curious about?
Well, unfortunately, many Hungarians still do not know enough about Korea, but the ones who do, they are very much interested, of course, in K-pop or some of the Korean historical dramas. Those are being played on Hungarian TV. Also, healthy life enthusiasts, they know a lot about kimchi. It's becoming more and more famous because of its health benefits. And also, as I previously mentioned, the economic growth after the war. I think once people get to know more information and more details about Korea's history and Korea's economy and societal and economical development, they would be very, very interested in how Korea overcame these past hardships.
Right, indeed. And Adriana, what about in Italy? What are Italians most curious about with regard to Korea's culture or history?
Oh, well, in my experience, all of my friends from Italy, when they come here to visit Korea, the first thing that they always ask me about is, oh, so this was rebuilt, why? So they don't really know about the Japanese colonial era, and they're really curious about that. Also, there is a big difference between Italy and Korea, is that in Korea, traditionally, everything was built with wood, and in Italy was stone. So, of course, there is a difference, also the difference of the material, it's a big difference, and in Italy, you know, everywhere you can notice there is some cultural heritage, 200, 2,000 years old monument or buildings. But when they come here, they kind of think always like, why is it's a new city and that's good, but so where all the cultural heritage, why, what happened? So they're really curious about, I think, the Japanese colonial era, because we don't really study enough in Italy about that.
Right, I see. Saba, do tell us a bit about your plans as ambassador for the Dondeokjeon Hall.
So actually I am going to be an ambassador, or where I am already an ambassador for not just Dondeokjeon Hall, but for the whole Deoksugung Palace. And this is one of my main tasks right now, but maybe later on it's going to be a little bit more extensive. For now, my plans are to make a bridge between the Hungarian embassy and the cultural center in Korea. And also I would love to introduce the hall in several languages, so it can have a lot of promotion and a lot of news outlets to give and to be shown to other foreigners so they can hear about it more easily, as this building is very historically important, and I think it needs a way bigger promotion and it needs a lot of attention so it can shine as it was originally intended to.
Thank you so much for that. And Adriana, what about you? How do you plan to promote awareness about Dondeokjeon Hall?
Well, first of all, nowadays, the easiest way to reach as many people as possible is social media. So, of course, uploading content about Deoksugung on social media is the priority right now. But also, of course, as Saba also mentioned, being a bridge between the Italian Culture Institute is also one of the priorities. And we are already working for some events, maybe next year, because of the anniversary of the friendship between Korea and Italy. So there may be some events, some exhibition, for example. So we are also working as a bridge. And yeah, we hope to kind of translate as much as possible in Italian, for example. That would be amazing. And even physically, every time, even a few days back, my parents were also in Korea, and of course we visit Deoksugung and introduce them, but also to my friends. So I think what we are here for is just talk as much as possible about Deoksugung and let everyone knows what was its purpose and Dondeokjeon Hall. Yeah, I think that's our purpose.
Good to know, and thank you so much for that. We seem to have a few more minutes left, so Saba, perhaps you could talk a bit more about your personal story. Beyond your work as an ambassador, I understand you work here in Korea as a model and actress. What efforts can be made, perhaps, to better support the presence of foreign talents like yourself here on Korea's screen productions?
Well, as working in the entertainment industry for foreigners in Korea is very popular, I think it's very important to have the right regulations and to give a good amount of protection to foreign talents in here. Because, for example, when Koreans, they enter foreign countries, they receive the same amount of protection as the same country's own talents. But in Korea, I feel like there are regulations, but not necessarily enough institutions or groups to actually enforce these regulations. So I think maybe an entity like a union or just a smaller group that could focus on these issues and give protection to the foreigner talents would be a very good improvement. And one more thing is, I think, very important to mention is a certification of being and working as an artist. There is such a thing in Korea, but for some reason we do not qualify for that, even though we have a lot of conditions that we need to match when we are even applying for a visa. And I think it would be a great development if we could get that certification, because that involves a certain amount of protection from the Korean unions for talents.
Right, I see. And Saba, what brought you to Korea, by the way?
I used to be a dancer and I wanted to become a backup dancer, and then times changed and I became a model and actress.
Right, I see. Now, Adriana, earlier you mentioned coming to Korea 8 years ago to study drama here in the country.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts regarding Korea's academic path to becoming an actress, an actor?
Oh, well, I think my curriculum at university was one of the best, I guess, also in Korea, but also if I think compared to Italy, it's quite a good curriculum. And of course, as a foreigner, acting is something that requires a language skills, so you need to be fluent. But that's nice. That was also a nice way to learn Korean more passionately. And let's say the problem is when you graduate and you go to the field, it's that still there are not really many roles for foreigners because Korea get more and more globalized, more global, of course. Now, even when I go outside, I can see a lot of foreigners in the streets. A lot of them speak Korean really fluently, but still, if we watch dramas or movie, we can see that foreigners are speaking some broke Korean or only English, and that is changing. And I think with time, it's going to require some time, but it's going to change also in the field. So foreigner actors are going to be more normalized and going to have even bigger roles. So I'm waiting for it.
Right, and I'm sure that'll make it a very busy schedule for you, like acting as well as promoting Dondeokjeon Hall.
Oh, I hope.
Right, thank you, Adriana, and also Saba, thank you so much for your efforts in promoting Dondeokjeon Hall.
Thank you.
Right, well, that ends this edition of Issues and Insiders. For those of you interested, Dondeokjeon Hall in Deoksugung Palace in Central Seoul will open on the 25th of September. See you tomorrow.